Welcome to the Money Miracles Masterclass. This is Jennifer Riley, your host, and I am so honored and grateful to welcome Michelle.
I understand what it's like to make absolutely no money at all and to feel like your business is a hobby and it's barely even surviving. And I also know what it's like to all of a sudden, see the six figures start flying and going, holy man, I'm making over 10 grand a month, 15 grand a month. Oh my goodness, and you're just like watching it keep coming in and you're questioning going, is it going to keep, what's happening? I know the feeling of those lows and of those highs. And so I feel it's really important to say that, yes, I've been there and I've done that. Now, as a medium, as an intuitive, I like to meditate. And so, Jennifer, I was meditating and I was asking for a title, like what would be a good title for this particular event? And what kept coming up was the magic of money. And I kept going, I don't want it to be the magic of money. I was really resistant. I don't want it to be the magic of money. And the magic of money, you're going to talk about the magic of money. Now, I've come to trust my intuition, and it took me many years to get there. And so now I trust. So, okay, I put it out there. And so, of course, having my business be SoulFelt words, I love the dictionary. I love to look at the definitions. Well, I've never really looked at the definition of magic until today, prior to this interview. And so I just want to really pull up the definition. So magic ranges in definition, but I'll just read the first few. So a use of means such as charms or spells believed to have supernatural powers over natural forces. Incantations like ritual sorcery, talismans, extraordinary powers or influence seemingly from a supernatural source, and the art of producing illusions by sleight of hand. So, it's kind of, I don't want to talk about magic. Money seemingly has this supernatural quality. It has a supernatural power. It seemingly has this way of producing an illusion that gives us this feeling of enchantment and makes us feel special and makes us feel like we are better than, or like we can afford, or we're valuable, or we're worthy, and all these things, right? And so when you look back at history, you look at the money and gold rush, right? You look at what people have done over stocks, right? Seemingly there's a value there in terms of money. And so even if you are in the business world and you look at the big titles in books and in success in terms of how do you attract clients, there's titles like how to make money, right? Fastest way to get rich, how to make more money and work less. These are all very attractive. They're all very alluring and enchanting, and we draw in people that way through these spells and through this charm. And so I, of course, needed to talk about this because my ego loves that stuff. It's like, oh, they have something I don't have. They must have this magic formula. I need to know what it is. And so you sign up for all these different courses and classes, and some are more resonant, and some you're kind of like, it was a sleight of hand, and you learn. So money is something generally accepted as a medium or exchange. And we use it obviously for goods or services. And in the economy that we're in here in the US, we're using certain coins and certain paper and calling it money. And so we have put a value on it. And we have, as an economy, we've co-created a reality where we need it in order to survive. So anything can be money, right? But we've chosen particular coins with particular imprints and stamps on them. That's our money, right? You go to Canada and their money looks different. And so I have come to know, being in business since 2006, that there are some myths to money and there are some credences to money that we take for face value. Money is an energy exchange. I've heard that before. And that we need to see it to believe it. So the more we watch it, the more it grows. And that how money flows will impact our bottom line because money is flow. So I wanted to take just a little bit of time and I wanted to talk about my experience with each one of these myths and credences and do it in such a way that it can become a conversation with you, Jennifer, and also allow the audience to reflect on where they have had their own experiences with this. Now, interestingly enough, there's a lot of people who call themselves money experts. And in reality, if you look at the definition of expert, expert means experience. Most of us have experience with money. So technically, we're all money experts. But the question becomes, how many of us are experts at having a healthy relationship with money where it wants to stick around, right? So
love it. Right. What kind of expert are you being with money? And how do you shift into having a healthy, empowered relationship with money?
absolutely.
Yeah.
What I want to say about that is none of these myths and credences are bad. None of them are wrong. None of them are negative. None of them are a waste of your time. You'll learn something, right? We all have experiences and we all learn something. This is just my sharing what it is that I've learned, and just notice if it resonates as your truth based on where you are today.
Also, notice if you resonate, and also notice if you feel triggered or resistant, because either one of those are going to give you some clues for yourself.
Good point. Good point. Yes. The trigger, the resistance piece for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I really honor you. You're really modeling that in this conversation, that a lot of times we are resistant to that truth coming through, and you're showing commitment to listening even if you feel resistant and being willing to dive in, which really is true leadership. So I acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. Well, I had to go through different energies and different feelings, right? Like of stuff that kept coming up. And so we do things sometimes that we aren't necessarily proud of in this lifetime or others. And it was something that I was resisting, and I needed to move through it and into it. So I love your point about if there's something that you're resisting, take a closer look, right? Because it's an opportunity for healing.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
this energy exchange, well, we've heard money is an exchange of energy. So what is an exchange? Well, by definition, exchange is a trade. And so it's the act of giving or taking one thing in return for another. So when we move money, for example, I'm here in Montana, in northwestern Montana, and I'm not too far from Canada. And so we'll often, go back and forth between the different borders. And so there's a money exchange that occurs between Canadian dollars and US dollars. And they actually called it an exchange. And so for years, I would exchange my services for money. And I saw it that way. It was an energy exchange. My time for money, my talents for money, my packages for money. Money was a reciprocal exchange. And reciprocal, by the way, if you look up the definition, it means shared, but it also means opposite, which is interesting if you really think about that.
Very interesting.
And so money and myself, we were separate. We were not the same. We had a relationship, yes. And I would, take the advice of some of the other spiritual teachers, and I would actually envision it as a man who enticed me and who bought me flowers, right? All these things, right?
Yeah, the money.
Right, right. But we were our own individuals, right? We were our own beings, and it worked out. It was okay. I did well for myself, right? And so again, there's no good, there's no bad. I'm just sharing my experiences. So seeing is believing. So another thing that I learned about money is that you need to give it attention, right? If you abhor it and you don't really like it, or you avoid it, it's not going to stick around very long. And that makes sense. Seeing is believing. And so I would create goals, and I would create spreadsheets, and I would do mantras, and I would do all this stuff to track my earnings. And I would know where my financials were in terms of profit and loss. And it helped. It really did. It helped tremendously, to the point where the number would grow, and the more that I gave it attention, the more it would take off. And it became a bit of an obsession at times, but I did learn a lot. And if I didn't have a good month, I'd feel like a failure, unfortunately. And if I felt really, really good about the number, I'd be like, celebrate, I'm the best thing, since sliced bread. So by giving it attention, shedding light on it, it then has the chance to expand and to grow. And for those of you who like science, right, you can watch or look up on YouTube or Google this double slit experiment, and it talks about the observer, and it talks about what happens when you add an observer to the equation and how it can change things. And so I liked all that. It was good. It bought into the idea of seeing is believing, and it helped develop self-trust, and it kept the money coming in for a while, and then it didn't. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. The third thing that I learned that became my truth was that money is flow. And that money also affects your bottom line. So a lot of people talk about money being a currency and money being flow, because currency is current and it's a flow. And this went right along with my belief of the coming and the going and the ebbs and the tides and the rising and the changing, right? All of that. So I was able to buy into it. And it felt like truth to me. And therefore, it logically made sense to me. It went right along with my profit and loss, right? There was months or even years where I did super well. And then there was months and years where I was wondering where I was going to get my next meal, or how was I going to pay for my mortgage to keep my house, okay? And then I couldn't pay for my mortgage or keep my house, so I had to sell my stuff. And I've been there too. So again, the experts, those who were experienced, said money is an energy exchange. You must witness it, see it to believe it for it to grow, and that it is flow, and that because it's flow, it has low points and it has high points. So those are all things that I learned and that I bought, yes, unintended, I bought into, right?
Yeah.
So what I want to talk about is perception. My perception of these things were off. And I want to talk about why that is. Why were they off? Why were some of the experts making money and hanging on to money and I wasn't? Why was that formula working for them, but it wasn't working for me? So what I've learned, my truth, is that money and I are not an exchange. We're not an exchange. We're not two separate powers in trade. Money and I are made of the same source energy, which is love. And when you feel into that, when you really get that you are money and money is you and you are love and money is love, and you're in the same field of love, and you give yourself permission to be that energy. So it is an energy exchange, but it's the energy exchange of the same energy. It's not two different energies. We might be showing up, just like you, Jennifer, right now, are showing up as love in a different way than I am, right? We're still love.
Yeah. So would you say with that, deepening and reframing and expanding to know yourself, myself as money, as love, all source energy, that commitment to self-care and deepening in self-worth and doing the work around that, because we were talking about tools and tools that don't work or why they do. Would you say that self-worth work will make a difference in your relationship with money?
It's interesting because my voice, you can hear it, right? It's wanting to shut down. And And what I've found is when your voice shuts down, it's because you're wanting to speak the truth of something, and it's hard. It's hard to talk about it, right? And this is the first time I've really come forward. You know, when you and I first started talking, I had shared with you that it almost was it was something, being one of the best psychic mediums was something that I shelved. Yes. I didn't want people to know about it, right? But I've learned a lot about illusion. When you have this title, and when you're called best of something, and when people view you as having something that they don't have, excuse me, they view you as better than, or they view you as having this talisman that gives you some kind of power or magic potion that maybe if you're in their presence, you can attune them to it. In actuality, to answer your question about the feeling of deserving and the feeling like we're not worthy, again, it's all perception. We somehow bought into the idea that someone's better than us. And it starts at an early age, right? Yeah. Somebody says, oh, your parents, they can afford that nicer house or that nicer car, or you're wearing shoes that you bought at a thrift store versus brand new. Yeah. It starts with beliefs. It starts with perception. When in actuality, it really comes down to just knowing that which we already are. Yeah. It's not an easy subject for me to talk about, because I am going against the current, let's say, and I use that word loosely, the current of so many teachers who are kind of teaching you that there must be a blip in your system. There must be something wrong. You're not trying hard enough, or you're efforting too much, and now you need to be more in flow or ease. What I've found, and what I really have come to realize with my truth, is that the times that money evades me, the time that I don't have it, is because I don't feel like I am enough. When I am comparing myself, or I am scrambling to get more of it, and then I move myself into greed. And greed is a really interesting energy, because money's got a bad rap because of greed. Because of it, money's become evil. And really, it's greed that's caused the evil, right? Money is something that we have co-created. And I'm going to say this again. We've co-created it. And in actuality, it's really no different than me making you your favorite cake, Jennifer, and bringing it over and saying happy birthday as a sign of love. Same way that I pay, right, with money at a store for my groceries so I can feed my husband, myself, and my child, right? It's a form of love. But we give it either too much power in the fact that we become greedy, or we take away our own power by feeling like we're not enough, we're not worthy. And, you know, there's clearly things in my field that I needed to work out, all the way down to me having to have this coughing episode, right, to be able to speak about it. But what I've realized and what I've found is that a lot of people money is something that they should, you know, not need or not pay attention to, or they're scrambling for it. And it's never, ever enough. And they're comparing themselves to other people who say 6 figures. If you can say you have 6 figures on your title or on your bio, well, then you've made it. And until you can say that, you don't really have a business. BS. Right? Don't buy into that. You are love. Money is love. Are all your needs being met? Are you happy? Are you healthy? And that's why now more and more people who have gone through these lessons are changing their way of being, and they don't focus so much on money. They're now talking about abundance. Yeah,
this is great. I want to just for a moment, for anyone who's listening, you know, because we're in this space together, if if there's any place inside of you where you're holding back your truth, where you're afraid to tell your truth, where you're believing lies about yourself or the world, just invite you to take a couple breaths and breathe into your throat, breathe into your heart, and allow yourself for a moment to breathe into the experience of love and allow that to come into and illuminate the truth within you. And what I'm hearing you say, Michelle, is that cultivating love within ourselves and in how we show up, and as that being anchored in what we know to be true about ourselves, that is a naturally will expand out into our experience of money, because it's the same thing.
Yes.
And at the same time, to understand what's fascinating, the moment to clear out any places within you or us or this space where there's been greed or manipulation, or we've witnessed people who were actually needing love projecting and living into money as greed or power, distortions of love. To know that we have the opportunity to shift how we're in relationship, both with love and with money, both as us. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. What's interesting is that when you go back to the three pieces, right, that I started with, and we just talked about the energy exchange and that love is everything. And there's the perception piece is, I needed to change my perception about money. I saw money as separate from me. And I saw it as a trade, and I saw it as something that was very opposite of me. You know, it had value and it was powerful. And I maybe if I earned it, then maybe I had it for a while, but it wouldn't last. And it was all an illusion. And I just want to remind everybody that money is you. It's you, it's love, it's you showing up in a different form, but it's still the same. It's love. And it's really important. So that's where the seeing is believing is.
Yeah.
It's you knowing that and recognizing it. And then the very last piece of it, right, as far as flow is money currency? Is it flow? Absolutely. And so are you. Mm-hmm. You're not separate from it. It's not something that you step into and then you step out of it, and you step into and you step out of it. Mm-hmm. You are it. Uh-huh. Flow is love. Money is love. You are it. It's everywhere. It's here for your taking right now. You're in it. Yeah. You choose to separate yourself from it, and then to label it and to call yourself separate from it. Uh-huh. When in actuality, you've been it all along. Uh-huh.
So this is powerful. So both of those, this reframe of the see it to believe it and how money flow impacts your bottom line, both of those are actually anchored in the first piece of that reframe of energy exchange. Actually, it's all love. And so it's, I'm hearing you just shift the perspective on what each of those mean, where it's not that they're not true, those statements aren't true, it's just the perception and interpretation of what those statements mean.
Right, and that goes to this, like you said, this deep conversation that we were having prior to the recording, right? That beingness, you use that word beingness, right? How are we showing up? What is our beingness? Well, our beingness is love. It is God's source energy. We are it. We've never been separate from it. But some of us have chosen to separate from it, to have our own individual autonomous experience. And then through that experience, we can either be greedy or we can feel like we're not deserving, and then we get stuck.
Yeah. How can we support people who desire to move into that knowing, but they feel stuck? They feel like they really do struggle with unworthiness or not enoughness, and they get the theory, they get the idea, maybe they can feel the energy moving in their body. Yes, energy is love, is source energy. I mean, money is love and money is source, and I am that. Do you have any, support to help them like really, really get that?
The very first thing I'd say is love that about yourself. Love that you get to experience what it feels like to be unworthy, So then you can appreciate worthy all the more when you're in it, you know? And so does that pay the bills? No. Does that make your mortgage? No. Does that take away your stress? No. I know what that feels like. And so for those of you who are watching, a lot of what I'm saying is going to feel like fluff. Well, love is everywhere. Well, she's just, putting on her woo-woo hat and her little, fairy dust and trying to sprinkle it. And she said she doesn't like magic, but it sure sounds like magic to me, right? What I can tell you is that the fastest way to be able to reset yourself and to go into that place of potential energy again, to be able to move yourself from the, I know this is low self-worth, or I know this is greed, whatever it is, whatever extreme you're in, is through accepting where you are now by being grateful for where you are. And if that still doesn't do it, because I'm having a hard time with that, I can't be grateful for the fact that I don't have running water right now, and that I can't afford utilities, and then I am in a house that's barely even finished, and I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to feed my children. I have to borrow money from my parents who are elderly, just to get by. It's humiliating, right? All of this stuff.
Yeah.
The fastest way to reset, if gratitude doesn't do it for you, is to go and serve someone else.
Yeah.
Go and volunteer.
Well, that gives me goosebumps. Yeah, that's great.
Because your pride right now is getting in your way. And you need to release your hold on pride and humble yourself to return to that reset point. And when you surrender in reset, all potentiality, all of the energies of the unknown can work in your favor as you return back to love again.
Mm-hmm. So powerful. I want to highlight this because people overlook this, and they're in struggle. I tell them, look up and see where you can give right now. Whether it's to your neighbor and you're making an extra dinner, or you call a friend and find out how can you serve, can you step out of, being crunched up in the terror of your problem and your lack. So I love that you said that, look up and serve, and that can be volunteer, it can be soup kitchens, or at your church or your spiritual center, or there's so many ways to get involved. And you can look up right where you are and bring your skills and gifts, whether it's listening and kindness, look up in your space and see where you can serve. And I want to highlight that and give thanks for you for bringing that forward, because it will shift the energy. It will unlock things for you. Yeah. Well, goodness, Michelle, thank you so very much for being here, for bringing your wisdom, and for contributing with generosity, and being vulnerable with where you're at and sharing your truth. Yeah, really powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.